Boarding schools can become an environment where abuse and neglect occurs because oftentimes what we see is boarding schools are placed in remote areas of our country. And what happens is people who are predators will flock to these organizations, these boarding schools, because they know they're in an isolated, remote area. And oftentimes, those perpetrators and abusers are working with children who are sometimes referred to as at-risk or troubled teens, which I hate that terminology, but that is oftentimes how this industry, and make no qualms about it, this is an industry. It's how they often coin who they are catering to. Parents who sometimes are at their wits' end, they don't know what to do. They've tried every avenue, whether it be mental health or other services for a child who is struggling either with behavioral issues or mental health issues or cognitive issues. They're at their last step and they find these particular boarding schools thinking that this is going to be a bastion for them to help their child, when in reality, so many of these boarding schools have become breeding grounds for perpetrators and predators to take advantage of these very children they're supposed to be helping. The warning signs that parents or guardians or loved ones should be looking for as potential red flags is right from the beginning. What is the boarding school's policy on parent interaction with the child? Is it controlled? Are the communications monitored by staff? And if so, why? Oftentimes when communications, from what we've seen, when they're monitored by staff, the real reason at the abusive boarding schools is so that if a child begins to report abuses that are occurring, the boarding school, the staff member shuts it down, disconnects the communication, or takes over the communication and starts to justify or at least explain why, quote, the child's lying. Some other things to look for are they front-loading what the parent may hear? When you meet for the first time, second time, or in the very early stages with the administration, are they telling you things like, your child at some point will report physical abuse. They'll report that we're placing them in solitary confinement. They may even report sexual abuse. The reality is they're priming the parents. In other words, they know what's going on at this facility. So when the child reports, maybe a month later, 2 months later, then the parent's already been primed to go, oh, we knew this was coming, right? The administrator, the director, the owner already told us this was going to happen. One of the most common sort of starting points for abuse is emotional abuse or verbal abuse. Things like, your parents don't care about you. Your parents don't love you. You're never going to become anything. It breaks the child down. The child starts to believe and they don't trust anyone. Some of the signs a parent can see is your child becoming a recluse? Are they, removed from how they used to be in terms of their personality, their demeanor? They're sort of a shell of themselves. One of the most horrific things that can occur, and I've seen it far too often, one time is too many, but we've seen it far too often, and that is the sexual abuse or assault of children by staff members at these facilities. And so some of the red flags or some of the warning signs that you could see is oftentimes regressive behavior. Your child who is of an age that, generally speaking, doesn't wet the bed anymore. The child is fearful of touch. You go to hug your child and they withdraw, they pull back, they tense up. If you hear sometimes over-sexualized talk, if all of a sudden your child is using words or phrases that aren't appropriate for their age, or sometimes, the opposite of regressive or sort of freezing behavior, but rather outwardly aggressive in terms of their touch and contact. Make sure you're asking all the right questions up front and then throughout. Get the status reports, ask about the policies and procedures, make sure they have them, make sure they're following them, and not simply, are you following your policies, but how? Here at Laffey, Bucci, DeAndrea, Reich, and Ryan, Some of our most proud moments have been representing survivors of abuse and assault at boarding schools. It's having these facilities shut down who have chosen to allow a breeding ground of abuse, having these children removed through the civil litigation process has been the most rewarding work that I have ever done in my career here at Laffey, Bucci, DeAndrea, Reich, and Ryan.